Welcome back to the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. It's time for our weekly conversation with a local group that helps to defend democracy. I'm talking about the Detroit Documenters. They play a vital role in improving our access to information. They attend a range of public meetings and they document what leaders and community members are saying. Now, another person who's taken on a similar mission is Dan Arking. He's a lawyer for the city of Detroit, but during the COVID pandemic, he created the website Soapbox Detroit. It's a one-stop shop for so much information about Detroit's local government. Now, in our segments with the Documenters, we frequently unpack the actions of local commissions, committees, and task forces. But in what ways do they all differ? Arking sat down with producer Jack Filbrandt and Detroit Documenter coordinator Noah Kincade to help us cut through the bureaucracy.
Soapbox Detroit was actually my own pandemic project from a couple of years ago by now. So whereas a lot of friends and colleagues were home back in early 2020, making sourdough bread or whatnot, I was decided to use my free time to build this website. And just to be clear, it's a personal project that I maintain sort of as a hobby. So I take off my city attorney hat, and this is sort of my nights and weekends research project that I put online to share with everyone else in the community. And basically, the idea is just a recognition that local government is really complicated. Sometimes it's more complicated than it needs to be, but sometimes there's just a lot going on, and the layers of different, like you said, departments, boards, commissions, public authorities, et cetera, can be hard to navigate. So Soapbox Detroit is intended to make it easy for anyone in the city, whether you run a local business, or a block club, or are just interested in how city government works, to really understand all of its constituent pieces and to have a platform to participate in what the city is doing. There are a lot of opportunities, from public comment periods to meeting up with your council member, to really have your voice be heard and to influence what the city government does. But it can be hard to find those opportunities.
Noah, how has Soapbox Detroit helped you and other documenters?
Oh, gosh, in so many ways. So, we, when we're training new documenters, we always encourage them to use Soapbox as a resource. If they are covering any one of these boards or commissions that is within the city of Detroit government, Soapbox is a one-stop shop where they can go and they can look up that body in the department directory that Dan's put together on Soapbox Detroit. They can see a quick description of what that body is tasked with doing. There will be a list of all the leadership in that agency, all the current members. One thing I love is that Dan actually puts the date that it was last updated on there, and it is almost always updated more frequently and accurately than a lot of the city websites. So just for documenters to know who they should expect to be sitting on that board, with correct name spelling, those things are super valuable if you are about to report on one of these meetings. But then also, there is he's got there's a legislative resource there's a law. What do you call it, Dan?
I call it the law library.
Yes.
And again, it's mostly just got a quick link, easy link to the city charter, to the official publication of the city code.
Yes.
And then to all the many ordinances that are still in the pipeline that have been enacted, but are still going through that administrative process to get into the city code, which just logistically takes some time.
Yeah.
So, an ordinance can become effective on day one, but it can still be hard to research during that interim period before it gets into the official code. We figured out a way just using public information to sort of make it more accessible a little faster. No special information, everything is public. The whole mission here is to just take that public information and make it a little more accessible, a little more quickly. And have to say, we don't try and influence how people use this information, whether you use it to support an ordinance or a given issue or oppose that ordinance or a given issue. We just want to put the information out there and let the city, everyone in the city, again, use it for their own purposes. We call it the soapbox because we want everyone in Detroit to be able to stand on their soapbox and have their perspective be heard, whatever it might be.
And another feature on Soapbox that we love is Dan has set it up so that if you need to contact any of these agencies, there's just a button there on the directory, on the department directory, that says, contact this agency, and you can send your message through Soapbox, and it will get routed to the right people. Even right down to like your city district managers. If you're having an issue in your district, you can directly contact them, see who their names are, and send them a message. And having that all in one place is crazy. It's so beautiful, because if you've tried to just figure out who you're supposed to contact for a lot of these agencies, it can be very difficult. Each one, their website is, slightly different. It may be super accurate and maintained. It may not be the phone, the name and the email of the person that it says you're supposed to contact. It may not even work for the city anymore. But Dan has kind of solved all those problems. So that's another great resource.
It's the Metro, and we're talking to Detroit Documenters Coordinator Noah Kincade and Dan Arking. Dan is an attorney for the city of Detroit, and he also created Soapbox Detroit. It's a website that helps community members navigate Detroit's often complicated local government. What is the role of city attorneys when it comes to city council meetings? I think with documenters covering, that's a lot of times where we see these city attorneys the most, them answering questions for the city council.
City attorneys we collectively represent all the different constituent departments and offices within the city. So sometimes city attorneys might be providing counsel directly to the council or individual council members. They may also, in other situations, be representing different departments that may be coming before the council for approvals, asking for the passage of a resolution or enactment of an ordinance. So the city attorneys always representing one of the city departments can come before the council in a variety of different ways.
What kind of things or issues do you see coming up the most in your job that you're dealing with when it comes to the city?
Sure. So the focus of my practice is certainly not across that whole scope. I don't do much litigation, focus instead more on transactional work and preparation of ordinances. And so oftentimes, the projects or the assignments that I personally handle will involve, advancing an ordinance for the council's consideration and approval. Perhaps to change the zoning rules or create a new historic district in the city, something like that. Or perhaps to consider approval of a new contract between the city and a vendor.
One of the things that frequently comes up are task forces, commissions, committees, and when we use these words, it seems like they all are very similar, but can you kind of talk about some of the differences between a board and a commission?
I get this question a lot, both from friends who have no dealings with the city, also from professionals who work with the city all the time. So it's a great question. It's a question that I think a lot of people have. I think we all are familiar from, grade school or the movies of sort of the triangle on the blackboard of, executive, legislative, judicial, and that's your government. But local government, especially in the city of Detroit, is a whole lot more complex and I would say a whole lot more interesting. So directly to your question, um, boards and commissions they have different names, but are largely synonymous. They all sort of do the same thing. Um, there's no legal distinction that I've ever been aware of between a board and a commission. And, to that point, the city has the Board of Police Commissioners, which just tongue ties you across any sort of line. So they all serve similar functions to provide, either oversight of a city department or to perform some specific purpose, um, drawing from sort of more of a community basis than a regular city government department might be able to provide.
Boards and commissions, pretty synonymous, but what about things like a task force?
Different bodies will have some will have much larger scope of jurisdiction than others. Others will be created to perform a relatively narrow focus. And the substantive scope will vary from one entity to another. Perhaps it may be helpful to sort of take a higher level view between these things. Um, Besides just the boards and commissions, which do a lot of the city work, at a higher level, there's sort of the legislative branch, which is the city council, and the city council will have its own standing committees, which meet every week, and council members can also create more ad hoc task forces from that. So those will be about a specific issue area that are of particular interest of one or more council members. Um, Boards and commissions are created to sort of exist more indefinitely, and they will be established again to have a specific scope of work. So, for example, the Board of Police Commissioners, their focus is to provide oversight of the police department. The Board of Water Commissioners is similarly to provide oversight of the Water and Sewerage Department. And then, other than oversight, there are boards and commissions that are designed to sort of just perform a given set of tasks, but to draw from a greater swath of the community. So, for example, the City Planning Commission considers zoning and other land use policies and makes recommendations to the council. Those members come from all the districts across the city, and so presumably draw from more of the community basis than a department might. So it can be hard to generalize between boards, commissions, task forces without sort of having to drill down into the subject matter that you're interested in.
When it comes to the task force, let's say the reparations task force, for example, is that something that is more there to investigate and provide some recommendations, and then kind of the city council will take it from there? Is that like really kind of this research and recommendation role? Is that really what these task forces are?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. Task forces again are created um, at the by one or more city council members, typically chaired by the leading council member. They may have two or three other members involved, and may exist to provide research into a given issue that will then provide advice or report back to the council to take formal action. They may also exist to give greater voice or to advocate for a given set of issues or constituency. The City Council Green Task Force, for example, is very active in promoting issues of environmentalism and sustainability. The Skilled Trades Task Force focuses on the trades and improving employment opportunities and access to the trades in the city. So it's really up to any given council member to decide what issue areas to build a task force around.
Is it also up to the city council to determine how long a task force might be meeting for?
Yeah. Task forces are creations of council, and so they can exist on an indefinite basis, or they can be created to exist for a specific period of time.
That was producer Jack Filbrandt talking to Detroit Documenters coordinator Noah Kincade and City of Detroit lawyer Dan Arking. Arking created Soapbox Detroit during the COVID pandemic. It's a one-stop shop for info about the local government in Detroit. We'll link to Soapbox Detroit at our website at wdet.org. Coming up, we're sniffing out Pawchella, a party for pets, yes, but also a crucial event highlighting how Metro Detroit can support animal shelters. We'll be right back here on the Metro. Stay with us.